I want my old life back. That was the first thing she said. She said it before sitting down, the moment she walked in. There was something in the way she said it. Not tears, not collapse. Anger. Quiet, cold, settled anger. Ellis walked straight to the chair. Sat down, back straight, hands on her knees, calm but tense. She looked at me. 2 years, she said. For 2 years, I gave up everything. My career, my friends, myself. For him. She paused, and he was loving someone else. Behind my back. Her voice didn't break when she said that. If anything, it got harder. Some people tell their pain through tears. Ellis drove every word into the ground. I found out a few weeks ago, by accident, at the supermarket in the checkout line from an old colleague. What did you find out? I asked. Everything. About Daniel. About Claire. How long it had been going on. She lifted her hands from her knees, held them in the air for a moment, then put them back down. What I need to understand most, she said, is how I didn't see it. I'm not naive. I don't love blindly. But I looked, and I didn't see. This wasn't just a story about betrayal. This was the story of how an intelligent woman was made blind. Step by step, brick by brick. Tell me, I said. Start from the beginning. And Ellis told me. We met at the same company, said Ellis. I was in marketing. He was in sales. What was your first impression? I asked. Charismatic. Very charismatic. He was always the one who talked the most in meetings. The whole room would look at him. So did I. And I was very impressed. Her lips curled, but it wasn't a smile. Now I understand what that charisma really was. It was contempt for everyone, but it was packaged so well. It looked like confidence. The first year was good. He replied to my messages instantly. He never canceled plans. When I was tired, he said, I understand. You get used to someone like that, she said. And then one day, they start to change. But the change is so slow. Drop by drop. You don't notice. I got promoted. I had completed a big project at the company. My boss called, said congratulations. That night Daniel opened champagne. You're amazing, he said. He hugged me. He smiled. She paused. But I looked into his eyes. What did you see? They weren't smiling. There was someone inside, calculating something. I didn't notice it then. Now, I can almost see that look in front of me. After that look, the comments started. Small, quiet, always dressed up as for your own good. You talk too much in that meeting. Your boss favors you. You still don't understand company politics. What would you do? I asked. I'd get defensive. I'd explain myself. I'd try to prove why I was right. Her voice dropped, like I was trying to prove my own ideas. To myself. Every single time. Manipulation doesn't always arrive shouting. Sometimes it makes you doubt your own voice, quietly, patiently, until you become a stranger to your own decisions. And Daniel hadn't made his biggest move yet. That move came the day Claire started. How did Claire enter your life? I asked. She started 6 months later, said Ellis. Daniel talked about her from the very first day. Very productive, very professional, he said. I listened. What could I say? At first I didn't feel anything. I trusted Daniel. Claire was just a colleague. But something started catching my attention. Slowly, without me realizing. In meetings, Daniel would turn to Claire. When asking for ideas, when making decisions. I was sitting right next to him, but he acted as if I wasn't there. Did you bring this up with Daniel? I asked. Once. I said, why do you talk to Claire so much? What did he say? He laughed. She's my colleague. What do you want me to do? You're blowing everything out of proportion. I apologized. Then that meeting happened. A big presentation. My boss was there too. I had prepared for weeks. Thought through every detail. Data, charts, strategy. I had put everything into it. I started presenting. 2 minutes in, she paused. Daniel interrupted, without looking at me. Actually, Claire presented a much better approach last week, he said. His voice was very calm. Should we hear from her? My boss turned to Claire. Ellis went quiet. No one was looking at me, as if I hadn't said anything. Everything I'd prepared for weeks had vanished in an instant. What did you feel? I was embarrassed, in front of everyone, and I hadn't done anything wrong. When I got home, I confronted him. Why did you do that? I said, you put Claire ahead of me in the middle of the presentation. Daniel's answer was ready. Ellis, you become overly sensitive lately. Everyone notices. This isn't healthy. Her face burned. I apologized. She repeated those two words. I apologized. I apologized. For something I had done nothing wrong about. Something broke right at that moment. But Ellis didn't hear that sound yet, because Daniel had spent years teaching her to silence it. Slowly, patiently, a little more each time. While all this was happening at work, I said, "What was it like outside? With your friends?" Ellis gave a short laugh, but joylessly. "Which friends?" She paused. They were gone too, little by little. I couldn't see it at the time, but now it's very clear. She told me, when they'd go to a party, Daniel would want to leave early. She'd leave too. They wouldn't go to the next one, or the one after. "Did you notice at the time?" I asked. I noticed, but I told myself a different story. Daniel's not social. That's normal. I'm tired too anyway. It always felt like my own choices. She told me about Mia, her closest friend. One day she called. Her voice was different. "I'm losing you," she said. "What did you say?" "I'm just busy," I said. She paused. Mia never called again, and I never called her. That sentence hung in the room. What would Daniel say about Mia? She always held you back. You'd always come home unhappy after seeing her. And over time, I started to believe it. Daniel pushed away everyone around Ellis, one by one, but he never once said leave. He just made leaving easier, and Ellis thought these were her own choices. But the worst hadn't come yet. Ellis would have to lose her job. To find out, after Claire joined the office, how did Daniel start behaving? I asked. "The comments increased," said Ellis. "After every success of mine came a but. After every idea came doubt. Your boss is covering for you. Your team did it really. How long can you keep this up? Always calm. Always in the tone of be realistic." And I get defensive every time. I try to prove myself. But the more I proved myself, the more I started to question myself. Then one night, she stayed late at the office. Daniel was there. Claire was there too. I'd gone back to my computer for a document. I saw them in the corridor. They were just talking. But she paused. The way Daniel was looking at Claire. That look. Which look? I asked. He never looked at me like that anymore. When she got home, she asked, "Is there something going on with Claire?" I said. Daniel laughed. "You really are insecure, Ellis. You can't be like this in a workplace. Everyone can see it." Her face burned. I apologized. Again. A few days later, she went into Daniel's social media profile. The photos they'd taken together were gone. "Why did you delete these photos?" I said. Daniel's answer was ready. "It doesn't look professional. You shouldn't mix personal life with the business world." "And you?" I said, "Okay." Her voice hardened. I said, "Okay." "Professional," said the man who was seeing someone else at the same workplace. And Ellis had believed him, because each of Daniel's lies was built on top of the last, brick by brick. In the months that followed, Daniel started saying something different. "This environment isn't good for you. You should be somewhere more creative. This company undermines you. And you already felt undermined at that company," I said. "Yes, because Daniel had been making me feel exactly that. For months." Her voice hardened. I resigned, as if it were my own decision. The person who breaks you, then shows you the wreckage and says run. And you think you're escaping, but all you're doing is walking through the door they opened. And after walking through that door, she would have to wait a full year to learn the truth. "So how did you find out?" I asked. Ellis gave a short laugh, but there was no joy in that laugh. At the supermarket, in the checkout line, an ordinary Tuesday, after the resignation, the relationship continued for a while. Ellis was at home. Daniel was working. "Get some rest. Take care of yourself," he'd say. And I believed him, because what else was I going to do? I had no job. My friends were distant. Daniel was the only constant. That day she had gone out to do grocery shopping. An ordinary list. An ordinary day. At the checkout, she saw Sarah, a colleague from her old workplace. They'd never been close, but they got along well. We said hello, asked how each other was doing. She talked about her kids. I listened. Then Sarah paused. She looked like she was about to say something. "I'm sorry to hear you and Daniel broke up," she said. The room went quiet. Ellis continued. "We didn't break up," I said. "We're still engaged." She took a breath. Sarah's face changed. She described that change. Slowly, in every detail. That expression that suddenly appeared in Sarah's eyes. Was it shock, apology, pity? Or all of them at once? Oh, I didn't know. I mean, Daniel and Claire are so close at the office. I just assumed. She stopped. I'm sorry. I must have misunderstood. The line at the checkout moved forward. Ellis couldn't move. I left the grocery bag, walked out, got in my car. What did you think in that moment? Nothing. I couldn't think. The engine was running. The radio was on. I couldn't hear anything. She picked up her phone. She was going to call Daniel. She didn't call because Sarah's face wasn't lying. Daniel's words were. And I knew which one to believe. Sometimes you find the truth not in words, but in the color of someone's face. And that moment is both the most illuminating and the darkest. Everything falls into place at once, and that feeling of things falling into place is the heaviest thing you've ever felt. That night, she went to Daniel. She asked, again denial. Again, you're paranoid. Again, you're insecure. This time I didn't believe him, said Ellis. Why this time? I asked. Because of Sarah's that one sound. Nothing had ever spoken to me that clearly. She paused, and there was something else. What? For 2 years, he'd explained deleting our photos as professional. That night, I understood why he deleted them. Her voice flattened. Because he was showing his phone to Claire, and our photos shouldn't have been there. The relationship ended that night, but ending it didn't mean everything was resolved, because Ellis still had a question in her mind. One single question, and she had come here to find the answer. So now I said, a few weeks have passed. How are you? Ellis thought, I'm going to say something strange. Go ahead. I feel relieved. I was expecting something like this, but it still made me pause. Everything fell apart. No job, no fiancé, friend a distant. But I feel relieved. Can you explain the relief? For 2 years, there was a constant tension inside me. Every morning I woke up, I couldn't be sure of something. What mood will Daniel be in tonight? Did I do something wrong? Did I talk too much? Did I behave wrongly in that meeting? She paused. I was constantly doing calculations in my head. Now, those calculations are gone. You went back to work today? I said. How was it? I felt something while walking down the corridor. What did you feel? Like myself, for the first time. Sometimes loss brings you back to yourself. And that moment is both the most painful and most free, both at once. What are you most angry about? I asked. Daniel? Claire? Or something else? Ellis didn't answer right away. She thought for a long time. Myself, she said finally. Why? Because I'm an intelligent woman. I had a good career. I know what's right and what's wrong. And yet, I let all of this happen. Did you really let it happen? I said. She looked at me. Or did someone tell you so systematically that wrong was right, that you became unable to see it anymore? Her eyes filled, for the first time. Both, she said quietly. And the second one is much more frightening. She was right. With the first, you can take responsibility. With the second, making peace with yourself is much harder. The weapon was in your hands, but someone else pulled the trigger. This can happen to any of us. Slowly, without noticing. One day you look around, and there's no one left, and you can't even fully explain how it happened. Did you call Mia? I asked. Something softened in Ellis's face. I called last week, 2 years later. My first call. What happened? She answered. Where have you been? She said. Like no time had passed at all. And I cried. For a long time. First time I cried that much. A silence fell. What would you have done when you find out that everything you spent years building was actually stolen from you? Write it below. Ellis's story isn't over yet. Ellis, I said, you came here today and asked, how did I not see it? She looked up. But let me tell you something different. You did see it. Her eyes narrowed. You saw it many times. You saw that look. You froze in that meeting. You felt something when you asked about the photos. You asked about Claire. But every time, Daniel said the same thing. You're wrong. You're insecure. You're paranoid. And you wanted to believe him. Because believing was easier than watching everything fall apart. Ellis was listening silently. What I want you to understand is this. This wasn't your blindness. This was someone systematically closing your eyes, slowly, patiently, a little more each time. Tears ran down her face. She didn't stop them. The question isn't, why couldn't you see? The question is, your eyes are open now. What do you want to see? Ellis was quiet for a long time. Myself, she said finally. Just myself. That day, Ellis didn't make a plan. But for the first time, she put down that heavy weight somewhere. And as she walked out, walking toward the door, her steps were different from when she came in. Not lighter, more real. Sometimes the purpose of therapy isn't to heal you. It's to bring you back. To yourself. James.